out by myself and I look across the water and I think of all the things what you're doing. In my head I paint a picture. Since I've come home, well my body's been a mess and I miss your tender hair and the way you like to dress. Won't you come on over? Stop making a fool out of me. Why don't you come on over, babe? Why don't you come on over,
Day one.
Wait and see. Someday, we'll make it for me.
Yes, sir. I like how that sound right there, man. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? That's kind of inspirational. It's like everybody got a goal. They're trying to reach or alive. They're trying to live, man. Be bumps in the road. You just got to keep pushing forward. You know what I'm saying? If it don't kill you, it make you strong. You know what I'm saying? My story right here. Yeah, it takes a special kind of mind to grind and work from the bottom and climb up the ladder of success in time. It doesn't matter what the test is, every step is another level till I step in as the next in line, no question. I'm considered one of the best, my whole life invested in, holding mics and sketching rhymes, you guessed it. I'm on mine, still restless, yes, even pressed up my records on my own dime. As many battles I blew breath in, and open mics I blessed. I never be labeled an overnight success, passing out CDs, doing shows for free, then dabbing bow to eat so that my soul could speak over these soulful beasts that's so cold to me. Like the breeze in the shower, we be posted deep. All the prices that I paid, the sacrifices I made, it'll all come to life one day.
That's why
someday
we shine wherever we go. We shine wherever we go. We shine wherever
bumps the road ain't nothing. Rotate, nothing stop. Check it out, look. I remember it like yesterday, trying to get my record station where they play hits for days, having a conversation with this lady I'm facing while she making a statement made for me. She said, look, it's too many words in your hook, you need to work on your look. For what it's worth, I never took her words personal, but at first I wasn't certain though if she knew my words are personal and not just verses and books until the curtain closes. This is my version of what I know, learning in first person till I blow, and still I know how it feels to know I'm the deal. Did you still feel like a deal is just right, or a deal just might still add to my appeal? But they won't know I'm real till I touch my first million, right? I'ma chill till my bars is felt and play my hand with the cards I'm dealt, and that's the plan till this song is set. Yeah, everything you want in this world is yours. All you gotta do is claim it, man. Be patient, work hard, man. Yo, it's damn near impossible to shop music without lots of loot to maneuver and make moves with. So I stay in tune with my pursuit. Fuck trying to recoup, I'm trying to juke it, move units. The truth is, I'm used to excuses dudes give, like you can do what I do, fool and prove it. Walk in my shoes then, I'm used to goofy producers and cools that try to misuse you quick. Why you got it confused? If you think it's about groupie chicks and interviews in a mix, it ain't got goody, but I truly got the tools to overcome obstacles, including this music biz. I'ma shine like jewels, unlike these Rubik's Cube dudes with all this woo-woo-woo when they spit. Mick Luda is the future, so get used to this. It's day one, not a crew or clique. It's a new beginning. Someday, we'll make it for me.
That's why we shine wherever we go. 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 Lord, Lord. Welcome to the mind of a pothead. On my head, see a young nigga got dressed. We don't give a fuck what the cop said. I'm living a legacy. So even when I die, I am not dead. Nigga, I am not dead. Fuck with me.
Great afternoon, young wonderful people. You are now tuned in to I Said What I Said. I am Toussaint Werner. I am usually joined by my player partner, Herb Howard, but he is out gallivanting the world for his birthday. As usual, we get together right here with you guys to discuss issues that are important to the Black community, how they impact us as individuals, and how they impact us as a collective.
You read that shit good.
I did. I read it like I wrote it, didn't I? Ron is now talking to me in the intro. So Ron is telling me what to do because y'all know I struggle technically. So say that one more time, Ron. I'm sorry. One more time, real quick. I'm sorry, y'all. Bear with us. All right, we'll figure it out.
I got you.
All right, appreciate it. So, today, man, I was expecting, this is like plan C, right? Everything went wrong today. Usually when Herb isn't here, I try to figure out at least a guest or, a train of thought or something. And I had a guest coming in today, and then he called me like last minute saying he wasn't going to be able to make it because traffic was too much for him. So I came in today, and I told Maze it was just me and him. So we're going to have to work this out. You know what I mean? I got a guest coming in at 4, though. We got a guest, Tyshawn Woodlard. Just did this, just made a documentary about growing up Milwaukee.
Is this did I mistakenly see that somewhere in there you said today in the morning show, as you were tuned in, that it made
promoting my show.
Did you say it made you drop a tear?
It did, G. And I no, listen. So few things, man. I don't know Tyshawn. I've never met him or her. I'm not even sure if it's a male or a woman. But it's a documentary called Growing Up Milwaukee, right? And they sent me a director's cut of it to watch last night.
Damn, you plugged.
I kind of am. That's true.
Hooked up.
That's true. That is true. But I watched it last night, man, and it just disturbed. First of all, like my kids is on spring break, right? So I didn't even get to watching this until like midnight, and it's about a 2-hour film. And I was, they told me I should watch it with my son specifically, but just because it was late and I was just trying to get the information, I wasn't trying to get him involved in watching it. And I turned it on, man, and I was like probably a third through the movie. And there was a scene in the movie, man, that struck me so hard that I paused the movie, rewound it, got both of my children up to come watch this one section of this movie with me. And it did. It made me drop it. I was tearing up. It was horrendous,
What is the movie about?
It's just a documentary about Black life in Milwaukee. And if you got any like context to what Milwaukee is, and in a lot of ways, what the Midwest is for Black people in a lot of ways, right? When we start talking about the ADOS conversation, when we start thinking about this is specifically Chicago being the hub of Black life in America, like, traditional Black life, and that we kind of at the bottom of every measuring stick, you got to ask yourself sometimes, what are the outcomes involved in that? Right now, Chicago specifically has industry, though. So in the ways that it affects Milwaukee is different because the industry is less. You know what I mean? And Milwaukee is kind of like one of the worst places in America for Black people. Like they are the per capita per se. Like they imprison more Black people than any other state in the union. You know what I mean? And I got a large swath of my family that lives in Milwaukee. They migrated from the Gardens and other low-income housing trying to find better life in Milwaukee because you started thinking about the price of living being so much cheaper. And a lot of my family migrated to Milwaukee. So I spent a lot of time in Milwaukee.
So you said you got fed. I know a lot of guys that went from Argyle to Milwaukee. You know Flair?
Who?
Flair? Anyway,
not by that name.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Okay.
But if you in the Gardens, the Blakeys, they was deep in the Gardens, and a lot of them went to Milwaukee. I got probably like a good 200 cousins in Milwaukee. I can't even identify all of them because I don't know them all like that.
but I know I got a large swath of my family there. And subsequently, my son played AAU in Milwaukee in his last 8th grade year. So we spent a lot of time just going back and forth because of that reason. And that's really the most engagement I've had with Milwaukee. But Ron is speaking to me saying something I have no idea what he's saying. But in that, though, either way, what I'm saying is when I saw the film, man, some of the themes, some of the overlooming themes, some of the overarching themes, I didn't necessarily agree with. But the impacts of Black life, it just kind of hurt my heart because they was following kids, and to see how that's impacting them, just kind of it left me distraught, man. It's a sad situation, but in turn, it got me to thinking about the value of Black fatherhood. Now that wasn't the theme of the show. It wasn't even the context in which the documentary was made around. But it made me specifically, as a Black father, think about where does our value lie, uh, and why that conversation is kind of being missed out. It's kind of being passed by like it doesn't have any real value. And I accidentally ran into, well, I didn't accidentally run into, but somebody had sent me a clip of a video of Dwayne Wade speaking about his son, which is now claiming to be his daughter. Uh, and it just struck me too. And it struck me because outside of however I feel about um, this push away from masculinity, to see how hard he went for his son to be able to express uh, their identity, it just struck me, man, and it was something worth watching. And I think that's a conversation that's going to be worthwhile having today. So when I get a minute, man, I'm gonna try to pull up that video. Maze is gonna be chiming in, of course, back and forth. So we're gonna have a dialogue around that video, and not in regards to like how we feel about homosexuality or how we feel about making decisions about youth that are that age in regards to sexuality, but more so about what's the impact of Black fatherhood, because that's such a conversation that I think gets kind of passed over. And I think that we live in a different time. I know during my day there was always this conversation about Black men missing uh, from the family. But when I look around today, it's a larger conversation because it's not just Black men missing from the family. Today it's more of a Black family missing for the family. Even the women are missing from the family. And in a lot of ways, these children are raising themselves. And I always talk about capitalism, and I know that creates this kind of a transactional environment. But when you look at the fruit that we are bearing off these trees, it's disturbing, you know. And I think that the Black male has been pushed so far down the totem pole of value that he's not even a conversation anymore, you know. But in him not being a conversation, we rarely discuss the impacts of missing mothers, or mothers who traumatize their children, or mothers who are drug addicted. And I'm not putting no blame on any mother. I'm saying, as a man standing in my proper polarity, we have a responsibility, devoid of the mother, regardless of what's happening in that situation right now with the moms of that family. As men, we have responsibilities. And when I saw this video, well, when I saw this documentary, and it's called Growing Up Milwaukee. And again, they're gonna be chiming in at the 4 o'clock hour. So we'll have a chance to discuss that in depthly. But beyond the scope of where women lie in our community, what is the responsibility of the Black father? Uh, why aren't we meeting that standard? Or are we meeting that standard? What are some of the dilemmas in helping us reach that standard? What can we do better in reaching that standard? What are we failing at in reaching that standard? I think those are all topics and all conversations that are worth having today. So yeah, man, we appreciate your comments. We're definitely gonna be using or leveraging comments from the we're definitely gonna be leveraging comments from the comment feed because I think it's gonna help aid us in the conversation. I wanna move into this video now because we do have the sister chiming in at 4 o'clock, and I think this is gonna be a conversation that's gonna probably last for the duration of this hour. So before she chimes in, I want to hurry up and get this video played, and then have the opportunity to discuss this with Maze first and foremost before she even gets on the line, and then when she gets on the line, I'm sure the conversation is going to take a life of its own, and we're gonna kind of, dig into that. Herb, what up, brother? I see you, man. Hope you're having a good time. Maze, I need you to plug me in on this video. I got the switcher. I mean, I got I got this hooked up to my computer.
Connected.
I got it up now.
Is now discoverable.
You got sound and everything? No, because I don't got the Rogue.
You're not connected. You got to go back out to your settings, to your preview.
Yeah, I'm trying to open up the Rogue now. And it should be paired. Bear with me, y'all. You know we doing this by the seat of our pants right now. Herb is usually the captain of the team running point. I'm good at knocking down the shot. All right, we good. I got it paired and everything. No, because I don't got the Rogue.
You're not connected. You got to go back out to your settings. Now you're playing yourself.
Yeah, I got it. Yeah, let's move into this video, man. So we got it up now. We're going to let it rock. Do I got to do anything in here?
You got to switch. Oh, you got to switch them over. Here, I got you.
Yeah. And we could have went with just the sound, but I kind of want y'all to see the visuals because the emotion in it is kind of what sparked the conversation for me. It is up there already, Ron. It should be. I'm connected to the switcher. Display 2880. Y'all bear with us, y'all. This is live radio right now. It sounds crazy because it's dead air, but
you keep talking.
Again, man, I was saying in this video, Dwayne Wade is discussing just his willingness to fight for the value of the identity his son wants to have. You know what I mean? And he talked about it that, when the child was first born, that him and his wife had already recognized some feminine tendencies. Like early. I'm talking about early behaviors, maybe 1, 2, something like that. And I think, in my own opinion, right, I think most of the homosexual community is born homosexual. I also add value to the value of marketing. And I think in these days and age, there's a messaging just being promoted to present that idea as feasible. But I think that there is a contingency of our society that is born homosexual. So there was a conversation they were having between him and his old lady, and they was asking each other the question, like, what if? And, they said that was like around 3 years old, like, what if? And like 5 or 6 years later, the son came back to them and said, hey, I'm having these kind of feelings, and I think this is what's going on with me. And I am. And in that, they discussed it, and 8 years later, well, not 8 years later, but 5 years later, whatever, the child came to them and said, this is what it is. So we finally got it up, man. We're going to let it rock out right now. So
all the people got something to say about my kids. Boosie, all the people who got something to say, Jay Boogie, I thank you because you're allowing the conversation to keep going forward. Because you know what? You might not have the answer today. I don't have all the answers, but we're growing from all these conversations. So I thank everybody for even hating and starting those conversations, because those conversations are starting other conversations that we need to have and that's happening out there. So I don't hate it. When I'm dealing with people, is I'm dealing with life and death. It's people in the transgender community that are getting killed. It's kids that are murdering themselves. They're hanging themselves. They're killing themselves because you know what? Some symbol is acceptance. Some symbol is unconditional love. It's not being given to these kids. Mm-hmm. And I'll be damn if my child gonna be that person because of some symbol is me supporting who you are.
The information that comes out about, Black transgender women, it's so sad, man. And those numbers are staggering.
It's unbelievable. It makes me sick. You got to look at yourself in the mirror. You got to go to that mirror and look in the mirror. And when you have kids and say, all right, if my kid is going to be boom, 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 how are you going to deal with it, sir? And when it came to Zaya, let me tap in. Okay, Zaya, let me look in the mirror because I'm going to tell y'all something. And people don't want to hear this shit and don't believe this shit. At 3 years old, me and my wife looked at each other and we said, what if? What if at the time the name was Zion, if Zion comes home one day and say, Dad, I'm gay, or Dad, I'm this, I'm that, what are you gonna do, sir? That's real. And so what I did at 3, when Zion was 3, is I prepared myself and I looked in the mirror and I said, yeah, what are you gonna do? So when we sat down and I was in the room across the way, I prepared myself for 5 years for that moment, not knowing what I was gonna do or say. When Zion sat down with me and was across the way, just like me and you are right now, Ryan, I'm looking at my child. I don't care about anything else. I'm looking at my child, and I'm looking at my responsibilities. I'm looking at a child that's crying, that's afraid to tell their father.
Wow.
That they're different than what you probably thought I was, Dad. I don't want to play basketball. I'm not a boy. I feel that I am X, Y, and Z, right? I'm looking at my child scared to tell me. And I feel like I am pretty open at this time. Right. I realized that I needed to do better and I needed to do more and I needed to educate myself.
When did Zaya have that conversation with
8 years old, 5 years later.
Okay, so here's my question, right? Because I looked at Zaya, and I know the only thing that we want to do is to see our children smile, right? Mm-hmm. But what I also realized, I was like, so he's been loving, he's been supportive, he's become a champion beyond his child, and I said, and it's looked easy. I can't believe that it was easy.
It's not our job and our responsibility to tell you who you are. You are going to be who you're going to be. It's my job to try to put you in the best positions to help you reach that goal of who you want to be. But it's my job to tell you. You know what I mean? And right now, we experiencing that with Zaya, my 13-year-old, who last year we came out and we spoke to the world that, hey, my 13-year-old came home and said, Dad, this is who I am. I am a transgender child. And we didn't come out until she was 12 to the world. But the reason we came out to the world was because I got tired of trying to hide my child, not posting Zaya, because we posted one thing on her birthday and there was so many bad comments that we wanted to hide her from it. But it came to a point where I said, am I hiding her from it or am I hiding myself from it?
How do you move it forward?
Yeah, and so doing
It's not even moving forward, bro. Like, I got tears in my eyes right now, and I hate that I'm the one,
it's
in
always the
back-to-back
big dude that
episodes.
cries a lot, though. The big dude always cries.
We talk about this machismo thing, and I got tears in my eyes because I'm thinking about, like, the reality is you're part of the 1%.
Yes.
Like, not a lot of dudes, bro. Like, think about that, because we think about, throwing the ball with our boys and doing those things. And so, you 1% of being able, that unconditional love that you talked about, and a lot of people don't understand what that means. For the majority of us is we've seen people lose their lives. Yes. We've seen people take their own lives.
Talk to me.
Right?
Talk to
because of not feeling comfortable with coming to parents and saying this is what's going on.
That's what I'm saying.
And then also, like, how many fathers have said, especially in our community, that, no, that ain't my son.
100%. That's the thing. That's
right?
it.
So, but if we gonna be real, and you talk about no layups, if we gonna be really real in the locker room, how will we deal with that?
They don't understand what they're talking to. Well, you give them advice. That's what we want on this show.
You just said it.
Advice.
You just said it. I'm over here living real motherfucking life. If everybody on the outside, I don't care about the outside noise. We don't listen. Zaya don't give a fuck about the outside noise. So people can't get over themselves and their pride and their ego. You know what I'm saying? Get out the fucking way and let your child to be who they are. We grew up in a certain era. Right. Life evolves, people evolve. 2021 is not the first time that we've experienced gay people. We've experienced transgender, LGBTQ+. This is not the first time, right? Like, we're in that generation now. When it comes to my child, and everyone says they are willing to do this, I'm willing to die for mine.
I love
and
it.
so if you want to say something against mine, if you want to hurt mine, come and talk to me first, because my child has the right and the ability to be whoever they want to be in this life, and I'm going to make sure of it. I don't care who or what they decide to do. If this is my job. I am the leader of this family. As the leader of this family, I'm going to make sure who you are is shown and shouted out to the world, because I don't want my kids to not feel comfortable. And we're already black people in the world. That's enough. Right. Season 1 pose. We didn't.
So I'm gonna stop it right there. I switched over. Did I do it right? Okay, I'm trying to catch up to speed. So, man, I want to ask you the question, man. From a father's perspective, not disregarding the conversation in totality, right? The sex of the child and all that. From a father's perspective, is there any other approach that you could take to this conversation?
No.
Yeah.
I mean, damn.
And I agree.
I'm gonna say this, and I am not I am pro masculinity, etc. But it's like I mean, damn, listening to that, it's like I'm going for my kid. It's like it's still my kid. It's still my whatever, and it's like you love them. That was deep and it was powerful, and I think it adds perspective to the conversation. What your favorite thing is nuance, or so there's nuance to the conversation. But I definitely thought that was powerful. I thought that was powerful.
I did too, and I think it's a lot of nuance in this conversation. That's kind of was interesting to me, and that's why I stopped it where I stopped it at. Uh, his last statement was about Zaya being a transgender child, and then he said, "Plus, she's black." Now, I'm not gonna lie, I line up on both sides of this argument, and I'm talking about from the standpoint of how to best protect your child. Uh, when he hit him with the plus he's black, it kind of threw me for a loop. And it threw me for a loop because when you start looking at all of the things that he's talking about, why he's willing to die for his child, you start thinking about all of the reasons why he's going to war for Zaya. If you just switched out the words transgender and just switched in the words black, those children share an equal level of vulnerability in my mind, right? When you start looking at the suicide rates, black boys are the fastest growing rate of suicides in America. When you start looking at all of the lack, or all of the oppression, or all of the ailments that our community deals with, we inherit those responsibilities regardless of our sexual decisions, or whether we line up on the heterosexual side or whether we line up on the homosexual side. But as a dad, though, I would be hard pressed to believe that I would approach that topic from any other perspective than I'm gonna go to war for my child. So that video was striking to me, and I know that that's not a. Well, I don't want to say I know that that's not a normality for our community, because that's not. I don't know if that's true or not, and I think that's where the conversation lies today. I think that's where we're supposed to be at in the conversation. Also, Maze, somebody I got a call. I think I got a host downstairs. If Ron can go open that door, man, I'm not sure or not, because I can't answer the phone right now, but I think he's at the front door. I think so. I
Into
think
the
so.
building. Okay. No,
Yeah.
they're downstairs.
Don't
Outside,
get the door,
outside,
not
outside.
the yeah. But in regards to like how Dwayne Wade handled that conversation is admirable to me, you know. But I also think that there's this level of ignorance that permeates in our community where we don't really fully understand what it means to be black in America. So all the things that he's fighting for, all the things that he's standing up for his transgender son, are things that we should all be standing up for our black children in general. And I don't think that happens. And I think that kind of disturbs me about how this conversation plays out. But it also inspires me in regards to the role of what the black man is supposed to be as the helm of his family. You know, and that's a conversation we often don't have. And I keep saying, you know, we're gonna have this filmmaker on at 4 o'clock. And when I saw that film about growing up in Milwaukee, and I was seeing some of the disparities, and I was thinking about how abandoned these children are, I'm hard pressed to just relinquish our role, you know. Uh and I think that we've kind of got this idea that the black man has been valueless. And whenever we see the conversations about, you know, I know we do Relationship Fridays, but whenever we had that conversation about Relationship Fridays, or whenever I just look online in the social paradigm, I'm kind of met with this idea of transaction. And the idea of transaction is you're kind of only worth what you can afford. You know what I mean? So you have no value in the paradigm unless you can bring forth a couple of dollars. And when I look at the hurt and the trauma that's occurring in the lives of our children, it's a reflection of the disjointedness of our families. You know, so to see Dwayne Wade stand up in the way that he did, uh, it was inspiring. So when we come back from this first 30-minute break, man, I think Mays will finally be finished with this conversation with Ron, and we're gonna get into that conversation first. And hopefully that'll give us some insight on what we as black fathers deem as the role of the black male in the family paradigm, what we as black fathers deem as the role in how we raise our sons, what we as black fathers deem as the role in how we raise our daughters, even what we as black fathers deem as the value or the role of the LGBT community um, in our community, right? Because we can't lie, we can't avoid this topic, we can't avoid this conversation, we can't avoid their influence. But I think what's happening, instead of finding a balance, what we're doing is kind of disregarding one for the other. And when we disregard one for the other, all we're going to end up with is more and more pain and more confusion. So when we get back from this first 30-minute break, we're going to jump right into that. Maze, take us to break, brother. Maze Jackson, take us to break, man. Take us to break.
All day. Oh. Check it out. See, while you was on the corner trying to scrape up pack money, I was driving 80 stack trucks off rap money. I'm back money. If you want it, come to the hundreds and ask for me. Meet them OGs that'll blast for me. I'm right here. Ill Adidas, $400 jeans on me. Itchy with no safety, a loaded magazine on me. Southside, that's as wild as it gets. And no, I never sold crack. That's some house nigga shit. I'm not judging, but every man that's a man gotta stand by his principles, and I'm not budging. That's Mickey. You can take it how you want, but you can never be me. You can fake it how you want. I spit that uncut raw. You can bake it how you want. Break it down any way you like, you get the same result. Get in tune, the elephant in the room has now assumed pole position. Whoa. Oh. BJ, get him. Come on.
Reporting live from the gutter where that butter get gorillas jobs. That's why we call it work. The same work who get a nigga robbed. I throw my dice against the concrete. If the bitches pass, see you later. Grab my paper, tell her stay there, kiss my ass. This the jungle, baby, I'm a lion. Try me, I'll be firing. The same banger, same Private Brian. You the prey, you survive and hide. Better pray that them vultures and the rovers don't go flying by them. The mother niggas just so-so. How in the birth a nigga this hot in the cold go? I went from 20-inch assassins on that Osmo to the pretty 760 sitting low on them bozos. Those are big shoes, you motherfuckers is so slow. Get caught without your heat in these streets is a no-no. Baby need Pampers, daddy need that photo. It's bread or nothing, big old niggas, you see the logo.
Whoa. Come on, Scooter. Look, I don't see a nigga alive. And if a nigga claim he better, then that nigga done lied. And if some niggas jump chose, bet them niggas done died. You can always spot a cobra by the look in his eyes. You look at his clip, check out his bitch, you look at his guys. Cause 9 times out of 10, all that tough shit be just a disguise. And that does it. I got the chrome Mac and a black luggage. Cause money ain't the root of evil, Jack is the lack of it. I stay different. I move around like y'all hate women. I'm starting to think this whole industry full of gay bitches. No checkers, it's a chess game. Catch me in the next lane. Fly nigga, bunch of ice on me like my chest brain. All money's pocketed net, like a Hamas rocket attack. Explode profit and jacks where your moccasins black. Acknowledging that he resides, these scriptures is heathenized. Y'all couldn't paint the pictures that he provide. Eagle eyes, eagle eye the beef out. Either scream peace or pull your piece out. The flow and knock your teeth out. From out west where we never put our rags down, nigga. If I ain't the best, most likely is that ragtown nigga. That's right. All I can see on this beat. Whoa. Hey, haters keep hating. Y'all inspire me. Chicago. West side, south side, north pole, east side. Stick your chest out. Whoa.
Yeah, we're down with it. So I am God, tapping in one time for the one time. I am getting ahead without devolving. And I want to let y'all know that this coming Friday, April 2nd, I will be in the building on the What's In It for the Black People Media Network on Facebook, live with the homies. T-Tom, Gino, Eugene McIntosh, Terrence Tomlin, the Bigs, you know what I'm talking about, live on the soil. We're going to be debuting and premiering my upcoming project, The Eternal Reflection, with a homie Custom Made. Y'all ain't going to want to miss this. 1 to 3 p.m. Make sure y'all tapping in. We gonna be on the soil with the Bigs, you know what I'm talking about. Shout out the homie Gino, Eugene McIntosh, shout out Terrence Tomlin, shout out to What's in It for the Black People Media Network, you know what I'm talking about. Make sure you there. Yeah, I am God.
Everybody's talking about the all-new Sam Silk's Chicken and Fish. Place your order today for a delicious meal. The chicken and fish are fried to perfection, featuring a wide variety of catfish, perch, tilapia, whiting, and shrimp. Now it's your turn to see what everybody's talking about. It's the all-new Sam Silk's Chicken and Fish, Chicago's newest spot for delicious meals. Stop by at 2537 South Wabash in the South Loop, or get contactless delivery from DoorDash, Uber Eats, Grubhub, and Postmates. For more info, call 773-807-9010. 773-807-9010. Sam Silk's Chicken and Fish is open just in time for lunch, or take it to the house for a delicious dinner. It's Chicago's new spot for perfectly fried chicken and fish. Don't wait any longer. Try it today. Sam Silk's Chicken and Fish, 2537 South Wabash in the South Loop. Sam Silk's Chicken and Fish.
WIIFTVPN.
All day.
And we are back. You are tuned in to Toussaint Werner. This is I Said What I Said. As per usual, we usually get the homie Herb Howard leading it off on point, and I'm playing it too. But today we had to switch up because Herb is, like I said, out gallivanting the world, enjoying his birthday month, because he don't have just a birthday. Obviously, he has a whole birthday month. So he's tearing up the town, man. Herb's birthday is on the 11th, and already he's out doing what he do. I was checking out some of the comments, man, and it's interesting to me. Like, immediately the conversation switched to homosexuality or the child's right to have that kind of an identity, right? Someone in the comments mentioned the show that Maze had years ago that I actually saw, where Maze was interviewing a young brother who was probably in his mid-20s, and Maze asked the brother a question, and he said, how do you identify? He said, do you identify as male? Do you identify as gay? Or do you identify as black first? And the brother responded that he definitely identified as gay first. And that left a lasting impression with me. And although that was like a separate conversation, I think there's really all one conversation in regards to like how Dwayne Wade shows up for his son. Also in how we struggle with how D Wade shows up for his son. I think the overarching and the looming conversation is that black people are suffering from an identity crisis. And because of that suffrage from this identity crisis, we're reaching, we're reaching for value. We're looking to find significance in any way we can. So whether it be finding that significance in homosexuality, whether it be finding that significance in being one of the folks or one of the BDs, whether it be finding that significance in being an Instagram model. What's happened is it's consistent with the insanity of not understanding who you are. But in that vein, I think one of the hams or the hub of finding who you are, and usually who you are is orchestrated by first understanding that you were born into a union of love or a family of love, right? There's a value to a mother and a father in the household. And I often say that it's the feminine and the masculine that create the energies of God. And when that dynamic is disrupted, you leave the offspring of that dynamic searching for their value. There's another movie I saw not too long ago about, I can't remember the name of the high school basketball team out in California that's really, really popular. But Dwayne Wade's oldest son plays for the high school team. And I was looking at that film, and he's not a large character in the film, but he does have some camera time in the film. And throughout the film, you can tell, even though he's not on the same wavelength as his younger brother, you could also tell that he's searching for an identity. And when you dig deep into the Dwayne Wade story, and you start to understand the dynamic between his original baby mother, his children's mother, which was a real different kind of a thing, a different kind of dynamic, it's interesting to see that they produced these two versions of children. You know, and I'm not, again, I'm not a scientist, and who knows, but I think that plays a part in the energies that was created in them two children. You know, Sierra Canyon, that's the name of the school. Yeah. So his older son is, you could definitely see that he's looking for an identity, even though he's in his late teens. You know, in the movie with his older son, he kept saying, you know, I can't remember his Zion or something like that. I think his name is Zion. I'm Zion Wade. I'm not D Wade Wade's son. Like, he didn't want to be affiliated with his daddy's name. And I get that as a boy. When you start to move into manhood, you want to state your own claim and make your own way through the world. But he was putting such an emphasis on it. What it really read off to me was that he just didn't really feel comfortable in that identity, and he was searching to find himself. And the same kind of thing is probably happening with the youngest boy. Now, the youngest boy chose to be a girl, you know. So it took it to a different extremity. Now, I saw in the comments too that, you know, I'm not with dictating who you can or cannot be, but I'm also not with pushing the idea onto you. And I understand that too. But we also got to understand the society in which we are in, you know. And because we lack that identity, we're searching for a place and space to be, you know. But as a father, though, as a father, I'd have to say to myself that if this situation happened to me, I would come out in defense of my child. I would have to. I don't see any other answer to it, you know. But also, as a father, I think there's another role that we have to play. And I think that role is, one, defining what it means to be black. And until we get to that space and place, all we're going to create is confusion. And because we're searching for identity, we're bound to find ourselves seeking to attach ourselves to anything that is of value. Right? I live in Washington Park. And Washington Park is kind of the hub of drill music. You know, we had this conversation oftentimes. And not too long ago, somebody sent me a picture of my own son throwing up some gang signs. You know, now this is a dude who been in private school all his life. This is a dude who ain't never really had experiences, even with the community in which we live in. You know what I mean? But at the same time, at this age, in this delicate age in his life, he's looking for an identity, right? And the first thought I had is, damn, where did I fail at? You know what I mean? And what we got to understand is that we're continuously competing against a media machine that never turns off, right? And the young drillers in my community are heralded as them guys, right? So for a young boy looking to find his space and place in the world, who wouldn't want to be one of those guys? And depending on what kind of media that you're linked into, maybe being a homosexual creates a level of value that you don't see in black masculinity. When we look at the relationship between women and men in our community, if I'm being blatantly honest, I don't think women innately value us. I don't think other black men innately value us. And you got to start got to start to ask the question, where do we find value? Where does the man fit inside of that family paradigm? What is the value of black masculinity? Outside of just what is the value of black masculinity, what's the value of black fatherhood? Because if you was to ask the random person in our community, it's minimal, right? Because the man's value is to what? Protect and provide by the standards of the American standard. And if you're looking at the what does it take to protect and provide in the black community? Well, in any community, right? Today, in order to protect and provide, we're not hunting gatherers. We're not out here with spears fighting lions. You got to be able to make some capital. And black men specifically in America don't really make no capital. The math just says it doesn't happen. So we got a dual income metric of saying that the median is 60,000 for a dual income earning household. That's dual income, right? So let's say we break that down the middle, and both the woman and the man is making 30, and they surviving together off 30. There's going to be a power struggle there because money creates a value in America. So he's not the head of that household. And if he's not making that 30, and let's say she's making 35, he's making 25, does he be able to be the head of that household? And that, you know, how you feel about head of household and those things, that's up to you. But as a man, I'm going to tell you, most men are not going to be engaged in a situation where they don't feel like they can lead, right? And it's not, I don't even think that's an arrogant concept. I think that's I think that's a nature concept. I think that's the very nature of who we are, right? So oftentimes when we had this conversation a while ago, and there's a quote that says, "You can't be a man until you fully master the environment in which you inherit." Right? Being a woman is something that's innate. Being born with a vagina gives you the option of bringing life to the world, i.e., your value is innate. Men don't have that option. Their value isn't innate, right? We produce the 400 billion sperm cells while women produce 400 eggs. The reason for that is because our value is really just to plant the seed and protect the woman behind that. But if we are earners in this society, how are we protecting the woman behind that? We aren't earners. And we got to ask ourselves, if that's the case, and that's where value is created, and women don't see us as value, what is our response to that? How do we respond to that? How do we become the men that we're supposed to be? I don't necessarily have the answer to that question, but I think that's where we are. And until we find our rightful place in that proper polarity, we're going to create versions of us that are reminiscent of the Dwayne Wade situation. And I'm not saying that in a negative way. I'm saying that is that you just can't tell what you're going to get because it's been a disruption in the design. And until we address the disruption in the design, we're going to be here over and over again, whether it be Zaire or Zaya, or whether it be Eric or Lil Folks. It's the same conversation in my mind because they're going to keep looking for identity outside of their innate place in the world, because innately their place in the world in the bigger spectrum has zero value. At least that's what the world is telling you. That's what your community's telling you. We say this to ourselves, right? Think about just how Instagram works per se, right? The guys or the girls with the most followers are the guys and the girls with the most materialistic versions of imagery.
Got the
Materialism.
clout too.
It's clout.
That's the clout.
Right. But materialism creates the clout, right? And if you don't have the clout, then you don't have any value. And if I'm saying the median income in the black community is $60,000, right? And even if it's split down the middle, that's a $30,000 man. What are you protecting? Are you really providing? Is that really provisional? I don't think so. And if you, like I said, if it's 35-25, what's your real value? Right? The government comes in and let's say gives you the EBT card and medical insurance. That's your 25 right there. I don't need you no more.
Right. Real talk.
It's really what it is. And it's because we relate from a very transactional space. So until we get to this kind of spiritual space, this is what we're going to produce as a community. And I'm not just saying desires of the world. I'm saying desires of the world. I'm saying the little munchies of the world. I'm saying the Chief Keefs of the world. And I don't even mean Chief Keef in regards to the musical thing. I mean in regards to what that looks like on 51st Street. Because there's no value in black masculinity. And as a father, when Dwayne Wade stands up the way he did, it's admirable because that's what a man's supposed to be. But because of his ignorance, and I don't mean this in a negative way like he's saying he's stupid, but he doesn't really understand the dynamics of the design of blackness in America because he's missing that identity as well.
So what does he do though? Like, so what's the decision for him? Right? Like, I mean, because too, I would argue that he is closer to most men in America, not wealth wise. And shoot, he could build a moat around his kid. How does he handle it from your perspective, right? Without his understanding of that greater place that we fit.
Well, I don't. To say I have a hold on the answer, that would be a falsehood, right?
I appreciate it.
But from
where was he wrong? What
I don't think he was wrong.
What do you think he missed in that exchange? Do you think?
I think he was failed before he had children, right? And I think we've all been failed before this space and place because we don't dig back into the context of what it means to be black, right? Until we fully understand what that means, we're operating from the 50.
To where is that at? Like, where is, I hear that, right? And I want to know, and I mean this like straight up genuinely, like, I don't read 14 books a day, right? And I'm not being a smart ass. I wouldn't even pretend to say that I have taken in as much as you have. But I do wonder oftentimes, like, where is the definition of blackness?
It's not necessarily
Or how do we get in
It's
touch?
not even. I don't even want to say definition of blackness, right? It's just a lack of identity. Let's create a goddamn definition.
Okay, all right.
Right? Let's create a definition. But when there is no definition, we're gonna be like that little the tax balloon, flailing in the air, looking for something to attach ourselves to. Right? I gave credence to the story, to the interview you had a few years back with a young boy who said he identified with being gay over being black or male.
You've been tuned in that long. I'm just like,
Yeah. I was trying to help you a long time ago. But my point in even bringing that up, because that was like an aha moment for me when that dude said that. Because I don't have many conversations with homosexuals, so I don't know
None
their
of us do,
perspective.
right?
I don't know their perspective. But when he said that, I was like, damn, that's some rough shit to say. But it resonated as real because he, like the other boys, and even if you compare them to the little Chief Keefs, are lacking identity, right? And we lack identity because our condition, this is a social, we've been socially engineered. We've been educated in white supremacist systems. Everything we do is tinctured with white supremacy. So we don't know anything outside of it. So if we're going to accept that, and we know that we are openly the enemy to white progression, then why would you think anything that they push towards you is working in your favor? And until you find your own identity, what do? You latch on to what's natural, what's acceptable, right? I got on the pink shirt. I was just thinking about that a minute ago. I got on the pink shirt. I got fuchsia pink in my shoes. You understand what I'm saying? And I'm fully secure in my masculinity. But had I put this on probably 40 years ago, people would have been walking down the street looking at me strange, right? So it's not even a sexuality conversation for me. It's just a comfort and an understanding and a love in being black. So earlier today, I heard this on Don's show, and I've heard it on the Soul of America show when they asked the question, when did you find out you was black? That question offends me. It offends me because it can only be answered from a traumatic space. That's it. Because your identity of what it means to be black is in reference to what white people think of you. That's not the way to be, bro. We got to come to the table with that answer. We can't come to that table with as a response to whiteness. And when we do come to the table with that answer as a response to whiteness, this is the repercussions of that. You're going to get people flailing in the wind like the tax dial. There's no other way around it. So if you ask yourself, when did I know I was black? And your response is in reference to when some white person shitted on me or disregarded me, then somebody failed you. Somebody's been failing you for generations. If your understanding of your blackness and your state of being isn't rooted in love, you've already been failed. So when I look at the D-Wade situation, he's already in it. He's already in it, and you got to deal from where you are. So from my perspective, he's doing the best thing he could do. But the second best thing he could do is to educate himself. That's the second best thing he could do. Educate himself and stop dropping out of the social norms of America. That can't be your standard. Even the shit he said. My son came to me with this years ago. And the world didn't know it because I didn't post him. As in, posting is a validation of some shit. You understand what I'm saying? Nasty. Fuck what the world thinks. That's not the validator for anything. He said Zaire was comfortable with it, and I decided to come out with it because I felt like I was hiding my son from the world. So I wanted to post him. Whose metric is that? Right? And think about this. We can get away from Dwayne Wade. A relationship don't even have value these days with the young folks unless you putting that person on your Instagram. You know, and it's the same way around, you know, the face. Why you mention me on Facebook and all that? Because everybody outside of us are creating our value sets. And this is going to go back into the documentary, Growing Up Milwaukee, because what I saw in a lot of the youth that they were following, and these were like, I want to say they are extremes, but I don't even think they are extremes. I think they normalize. I just think that we don't pay attention to the youth in our community. But when you hear the pain and the trauma that them youth were going through, it's all looking for value. They were all searching for value. And in a world where nobody seemingly valued them. And the repercussions of that are horrendous. You know, there's a tribe, the Maasai warrior tribe of Africa, their greeting is, how are the children? And if you can't answer that question from a progressive space, then your society is failing. And I'm not saying Zaire is a reflection of that failure, but there is some level of consistency between the Zaires of the world the young drillers of the world. Like this is becoming a cultural thing. We had the conversation the other day with Herb about how our generation with music was so much different and so much better, and I attached it to hip hop being a culture. But when Herb came around, hip hop wasn't necessarily a culture; it was just a music genre. And maybe that's even a misstep too. Maybe the culture today is a culture around murder and death. But that's not a progressive culture that we should be wanting to be involved in. That's not a progressive culture that we should want to salute. But that's culture is breathing and breeding because it creates clout, like May said, it creates value. And they're all looking for somewhere to be valued because from somewhere within the paradigm, we lost love. We lost love. So when you get back to that family structure, that masculine versus and that feminine combined, creating the energy of God, if that man ain't in that household, you can't create that energy. And somewhere in that design, we're gonna miss something, you know. And what I'm saying is, whether it be Zaire or this documentary I watched the other day, we missing something, you know. There was a point in the documentary where I had to stop and I had to bring my kids down because the shit hurt my heart. And I'm gonna talk about it more when the sister gets on the line. But one of the conversations I had with my children was, this isn't a rare story. This story is not just happening in Milwaukee. This story is happening across the street from your house. You just don't know it. And you not dealing with these kind of traumas is a luxury. And it's a luxury of me being in this household. Now, it's something that they don't recognize because me being in this household has been normalized since they got here. But they would have to deal with the world differently if I wasn't in that household. And I'm sure that there are people directly across the street from me, their age, that are dealing with some of them same traumas that I saw represented in this video. And that shit is disturbing to me. So, on one hand, I salute the shit out of Dwayne Wade for standing in his proper polarity to protect his child. You can't do nothing but salute that. But at the same time, we got to stand in our proper polarity as men in general. And that means what? Mastering the society, not mastering one aspect of the society. So for me, again, like I said, I'm kind of standing on both sides of that issue. On the Dwayne Wade issue, one, yeah, you got to stand in front of that. You got to step up and stand in front of that issue with your children. You got to. But he also got to step up and stand in front of the issue of being undereducated, right? He broke down damn near in tears about, transgender children are committing suicide and transgender kids are being murdered. And I don't want to take nothing away from that because I'm sure it's true. But the data for black children is worse. Per capita, it's worse. Look it up. It's worse. The highest rate of black suicides are black boys, not black boy transgenders. So if we're dealing with that problems just in that the aligning of being black men, then we got to have different conversations. It can't be rooted in black sexual behavior. It got to be rooted in cultural identity. So that's where he has to, when you ask what would I would do exactly what he did, but I would also educate myself beyond just transgenderness. So
how do we get to him? How do we get to people like that? Like, I mean, because I'm gonna tell you, they're gonna turn him into a transgender superstar, and I think about like what he could mean to us, like in the process. How do we get to those people? Like, how do we get to the the living the American dream, people that probably could have that are looked up to and have the spheres of influence? How do we get to them? And help
I don't know
them
how
even
we get to them, but what has to happen is a change in the value. So I think we get to them like we're doing here, right? I think this is, when you think about how media is changing, it's becoming grassroots level media that's kind of pushing the envelope at this point, right? When you start thinking of the news stations, they're looking at Twitter to find out what their next story is. Problem is, we just emulating their shit. That's the problem. It has to be original thought. We got to come to the again. That's why I salute the ADOS conversation so heavily, not because of the reparations plight, but because it gives us somewhere to anchor an identity into. Right? You're different than an African. You're different than an Asian. You're different than a white person. You're special because you was born on this soil, and that should matter, right? But that's it's not a going back to. It's a creating the new. We need to create an identity. We don't have one, right? And that's a conversation that we must focus on. That's something we must think about. And what we've done is because we don't buy into the construct of race in the way that we should, or the construct of ethnicity in the way that we should. That's why we have the shit you talk about every morning. The Hispanic coalition that don't really exist.
Right.
Anybody who live in Chicago know that shit don't exist. But they talk about it like it does.
Right.
Because we're looking for something to be attached to. You can't take your ass west to west and do nothing. right? You can't. You can't take your ass up north with the African community and do nothing. You cannot. But we talk about it as this people of color commission. Like you see us using the words people of color, right? But you ain't never had that experience in your life. But that's because, just like the brother who was the homosexual on your show a couple years ago said, I identify with gay, or the little boy on 51st Street says, I identify with the Mickey Cobras. It's the same thing. You identify with the people of color because you're trying to anchor yourself into value. So until we address the conversation of what it is to be black and where the value is found, this is going to be a repetitive conversation, right? But on the back end of that, on the male standard of that, he has the least value in the conversation because we are at a median of $60,000, right? We're at a median of a dual income earning household of $60,000. Now, our wealth standard in America is also predicated on white supremacy. It's created by the standards of white supremacy, right? But if your median is $30,000 and that can be subsided by health care and an EBT card, then you have no value. So that further disrupts the design of feminine and masculine energy, i.e. the creation of God. So we're by choice choosing to make that other entity in our household, the government, EBT, healthcare, dissolve the creation of God. You choosing that. And you choosing that because your value set is in material. That's it. We got to stop choosing it. I know it's the 4 o'clock hour. I know we got this call coming in now soon too. So let's take this break so I can get this switcher set up for when she comes in because I don't know how to do this.
I got you.
have to do it on air.
All right, ready?
Yep.
ISTPM.
Yeah, we're down with it. So I am God tapping in one time for the one time. I am getting ahead without devolving. And I want to let y'all know that this coming Friday, April 2nd, I will be in the building on the What's In It for the Black People Media Network on Facebook, live with the homies, T-Tom, Gino, Eugene McIntosh, Terrence Tomlin, the Bigs, you know what I'm talking about, live on the soil. We're going to be debuting and premiering my upcoming project, The Eternal Reflection, with a homie Custom Made. Y'all ain't going to want to miss this. 1 to 3 p.m. Make sure y'all tapping in. We gonna be on the soil with the bigs, you know what I'm talking about? Shout out the homie Gino, Eugene McIntosh, shout out Terrence Tomlin, shout out to What's In It for the Black People Media Network, you know what I'm talking about? Make sure you there. Yeah, I am God.
D-Brooks exclusive. Hey, I'm crying real tears. I'm crying real tears. I'm crying real tears for Chicago. I pray we don't get lost in all our sorrow. I say I'm crying real tears. I'm crying real tears. I'm crying real tears for Chicago. We don't know if we gon' let it see tomorrow. No. 52 wounded, 10 murdered in a weekend. Homicides on women are increasing. 12 blinking at us for no reason. Feel like we going off the deep end. They still ain't found Kierico. Reported missing about a year ago. And she was pregnant with a little one. Her family praying for a miracle. Taxi van could nigga ain't get no justice. Why the energy they have for Jussie Smollett? I done heard every theory, but where the suspect? Ain't no luck, yeah. I'm crying real tears. I'm crying real tears. I'm crying real tears for Chicago. I pray we don't get lost in all our sorrow. I say I'm crying real tears. I'm crying real tears. I'm crying real tears for Chicago.
You are back with I Said What I Said. This is a beautiful Thursday afternoon, and today we are joined by film producer Tyshawn Woodlard. Is that how you say that, sister? I'm sorry.
Wardlaw.
Woodlard?
Wardlaw.
Wordlaw. Okay. How you doing today?
Yes. I am fantastic. How are you?
Man, I'm blessed, man. Blessed and highly favored. I appreciate you joining us today. I got
Awesome. I'm excited for you to have me.
I appreciate it, man. I got an opportunity to watch the film Growing Up Milwaukee last night. They sent me a screener copy, I guess you could say. And I got to admit, there was a point in the movie where I broke down in tears. And if you know anything about me, that's not common. That doesn't happen a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So I really appreciate you making this film. I want you to give our audience a brief description of what drove you to making the film and kind of give it like an overview of the documentary.
Okay, well, my motivation for creating the film was actually being able to go behind some of the statistics, unfortunately, which are coming out of the Milwaukee community. I know you feel the same way in Chicago, that, you know, it's the worst place for violence. Unfortunately, in Milwaukee, we're the worst place to live for Blacks. You know, that it's been stated. Unfortunately, economic disparities, education, the highest incarceration rate for Black and brown boys. So I wanted to be able to tell the stories behind those statistics, because unfortunately on the news, you get to see a package every now and then that, you know, kind of talks about what people are doing in the community, but you really don't get to chance to see like who's actually helping change the narrative in your own city. So that's what I wanted to be able to accomplish by creating the documentary. And then also the documentary follows 3 Black inner city youth in Milwaukee who basically is living their lives day to day, not to become another statistic.
Mm-hmm. Is there anything that you felt like you learned from the documentary?
I feel like I learned that the youth are going through a lot more than my peers when I was growing up. That they're facing so many situations that they have to fend for themselves sometimes. And I feel like there's a disconnect even with the educational system on how they receive information, how they feel like they're not being heard or they're not being seen. So that was something that I realized when I was filming, that, you know, we definitely have to shift and understand what are the needs of the youth to even be able to help change what's happening in the cities.
I heard this quote one time that it said that technology quadruples itself like every 4 years, right? So it's very hard to keep up with the rate of growth of technology. And I'm only saying that because just like you know, I grew up in the inner city. Well, I'm assuming like you. You've been Milwaukee resident, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so just like you, I grew up in one environment. And then as an adult, I look back on that same environment and I would always ask myself, like, man, it can't be that bad. Like, why are the shorties acting like this? Like, I grew up in that exact same environment. And then I started to invest back in the environment and build relationships with the young kids. And I realized that although it was the exact same environment that I came from, the difficulties that they were facing were astronomical in comparison to the difficulties that I was facing, you know. And that was like the overarching theme of the film, at least in my mind when I looked at the film. And the 3 kids that you follow, one, well, I got little notes on all of them, but DeMarkel was 16, right? And every scene that he was in, he was talking about a conflict that he was having with his mom, right? And in every scene, it was like, she's threatening to put me out the house. She's threatening to put me out the house. And it was interesting to me because I thought about it in context of he didn't even know who his father was, he said, right?
Yeah.
But
Not until 10, not until the age of 10.
Right. But in context of the dynamic of Black families, what you usually hear is how bad the dad is. And in his conversation, he was talking about the level of abuse that he was dealing with his mom. And that's a theme that we don't usually address. And I think it's an important theme to discuss.
And I think so as well, because even one of the gentlemen that works at a youth organization had actually stated on camera, he said, you know, there's a disconnect now where you normally, like you said, you see the father missing from the household, but what do you do when the child actually has the mom missing from the household and has no one in the household and they're actually fending for themselves? And that's something that I feel like, once again, we need to pay attention to. We need to understand, like, how can we reach our youth? And even for Marquel, that was going through, you know, situations with his mom, like you said, the mom is normally the head of the household, even when the dad is gone. Like, she is the backbone. Like, you don't conflict with your mom. Like, your mom is your everything. But with Marquel, it was the opposite. You know, his mom to him was his enemy, you know, until she showed otherwise. And so just by having men instill in him to say, you know what, even though your mother is showing you tough love or a way of learning that you don't understand, she still loves you. She still cares about you. You know, and you still have to be able to understand where she's coming from, and then also meet her to be able to reconcile on some of those differences some of the differences that you guys are having.
It also said in the doc that Milwaukee is the most incarcerated zip code in America. Do you have any idea why that is?
I think it's just basically generational. I wouldn't say a generational curse, but it was what has been set up, unfortunately. And I know Chicago can be the same way, where the redlining, you were placed in certain positions, so therefore there's high pockets of crime in certain areas. So they, people from certain areas, they commit more crime. There's more needs there, so therefore they're going to jail left and right. And unfortunately, sometimes for very minimal, I wouldn't say petty crimes, but I mean, they're going to jail at an extreme rate, unfortunately, that's extremely high in certain areas due to the low economic state in that area, that is causing more people to commit crimes because they have unmet needs. So they're doing whatever they can to survive, and or some of them even do things that I know it happens in Chicago all the time, just being reckless. Because that's the environment that they're growing up in. And that's what I wanted to show, even in the film, that unfortunately this is happening, and they have those zip codes that they're doing X, Y, and Z in, but all hope isn't lost. And there are people that, as we saw in the film as well with the Block Party, that, we're going to be right here in this same isolated area, and we're going to shut it down for 6 or 7 blocks, and we're going to show that we love you, and we're going to be just as loud as the violence. We're going to be just as loud as, anything else in this neighborhood, because we love you with positivity. So I think it's very important to also show in a range of, yes, this is happening, but people are also helping change what's going on in the city.
It seems like to me, like when we do documentaries or stories about our community, it's usually rooted in violence. But throughout your film, there's like this poet it's like this poetry set going on. And some of the ideas expressed in the poetry kind of got at the root of that violence. And that's an issue we don't usually discuss. Was that your goal? Or you just wanted the poetry to, kind of set a theme through the movie? Was that the goal? Were we trying to set the goal of why this violence exists? Are we trying to tell that story through this film?
Yeah, and interestingly, that poetry was created 12 years prior to me even knowing that it existed. They were at a poetry slam, and when I met the gentleman, Muhib Dyer, that I actually wanted to help narrate the film, and I was saying how I wanted to address some of the statistics, and he said, well, sister, I got something that I created years ago that unfortunately is still relevant. The things that he talked about was from 12 years ago, but everything that he touched base on is still a reality. Not only in Milwaukee, not only in Chicago, not only in different major cities across the US, but it's still so relevant. So I wanted to be able to use that just even as a springboard to say, what, these things are happening. Yet and still, year after year, like, how are we improving? How are we improving these things that are happening in our community? And how are we bringing solutions to the problems?
Do we have any answers for that, right? So if that poetry was created 12 years ago, are we finding those solutions?
Yeah. And I honestly don't believe so, because it's still happening. I believe that we're just addressing it. We're highlighting it. We're talking about it just as we're talking about it now, but we need more people, not only on the city level, but on the state level, on the government level, that's willing to get in with change. People with money that's able to put resources in it. People that's willing to step up in leadership and say, you know what? Let's not just have another forum or panel about how we can discuss what's going on in the city. How can we change it? How can we bring solutions? And I feel like there's just people just constantly talking about the problems, but we're not bringing up solutions.
Mm-hmm. My co-host Herb, who isn't with us today, he has a saying where he says there's no such thing as staying the same. You either getting worse or you getting better, but you never stay the same. And when I looked at the film, some of the most shocking stuff to me, and I don't even know why it's shocking, right? Because I live in the community and I engage shorties, but I guess seeing it on film, and just every time I hear it kind of hurts. But the nonchalantness in which these children express the levels of traumas that they were dealing with was blowing my mind.
Yeah.
You know, there was one sister, and this was kind of just like a cut through clip where she was discussing her summer vacation, and she was like, "I got raped or whatever," and she said
Yeah.
it just like that. That's a quote. She said, "I got raped or whatever," you know, and that hurt my heart, man, because that's how normalized the trauma has become, you know. And there was another scene where you did, I don't know if you did, but you was filming around like a circular conversation of youth,
Yeah.
and they were all just discussing their traumas and some of the things that they had experienced. And I also too, I saw like a thing with like this one high school kind of concept. Was that like one school, or did you
No, so that
specifically
was
pick
one
these
school. That was
kids out?
actually that was Marquell School. So that
Okay.
was sessions that actually happens in Marquell's school between the gentleman that was running it. His they call him Uncle Rick. So these were sessions that is not a part of the curriculum for their actual school, but this was something that he set in place because he said, you know what, I know that these kids are hurting. And a lot of kids come to school and they look at him as a father, as an uncle, as a mentor. So he developed like that circle session that you see in the film as a way for them to be able to come together to release a safe place. Even though they were able to share like a lot of traumatic situations that they're going through, they felt safe with being able to share that because they weren't being judged. It was a judge-free space. So that was actually one school, but that was Marquell's classroom.
So that's interesting to me, right? And it's interesting to me because it goes back to what I just said about my brother Herb, my co-host. There's no just staying the same. You're either getting worse or you're getting better. If that was just one school, that room was probably filled with, let's say, about 25 to 30 students, I would assume.
Yeah.
And just of the stories that were filmed, they were so traumatic. They were so tragic. Like there could have been a documentary made about each one of those children.
Yeah.
So just playing the numbers game, you get one school and just grab random 30 children and these are their experiences. That speaks volumes to where our communities are, you know, and it's extremely disheartening. I had to stop the film and bring my children down to watch it. And I had a different kind of dialogue with my children about that experience. And before you got on the line, the dialogue that I was having with my children is, you know, these experiences aren't rare. There's probably children across the street from my house that are having these similar experiences. But you have the luxury of not having the experiences, so you don't even think that they exist. And it's amazing that, you know, I know that these stories are happening directly across the street from my house, and just crossing the street in regards to like space is enough space to create a whole new planet for my children. You know, it was really disheartening, man. It was very, very disheartening. Another sister that you followed, the singer, Tiana, 18. Very talented young sister. Very, very talented. Has a beautiful voice. Some of her story I just didn't get also, though. Did she live alone?
So she had just literally aged out of the group home system. So she was out on her own, but kind of shifting between houses. And she kind of stated that in her interview where, you know, I'm living in a certain place now, but I might move. But yeah, she was basically just house shifting. And I think, unfortunately, and that also brought attention to some people that I know that said, hey, what can I do to help youth as they transition out of the group home system? Because unfortunately, sometimes they're out there on their own. Once you age out, you may have, depending on, you know, your level of interest when you were in the group home, you may have some resources for housing afterwards, but there are a lot of actual youth that don't get those resources. So you're just out there on her own. So she was just basically jumping from house to house.
The group home setting, there was a few kids in that group home setting. Was that, how does that work in Milwaukee? Because I'm not hip to the group home settings or how they work in Chicago. I'm not even sure if they do exist in that same kind of way.
So in the state of Wisconsin, they actually have a system where they create homes. Well, individuals will create home and they partition to actually get them licensed. So this is like a licensed group home from a company that's normally for profit, but they get all of the youth from the Department of Children's Services, where they send them there to live, you know, all the way between the age of 12 to 18. and then that's when they age out. So normally that's how the process works, where an individual, as long as they qualify and they're able to create a group home and get it licensed through the state, they're able to operate and actually receive children from Wisconsin Department of Children's Services.
And two, we have that here, and it's a non-profit. There's often nonprofits, but they really are for-profit systems where basically these children are grouped. Well, you saw it, but they're grouped in homes, and the goal is to put them in closer to a family environment. So you may have a group home in your neighborhood, or more than one or two in neighborhoods, and they come in and out, and you'll see the kids, and then they have staff that goes there and kind of serves as the mom, dad, drives them, gives them haircuts and all of that stuff. But that is pretty extensive here. And then even here, when she was talking about people being caught in between, they even have a program that allows you to go from there to what they call transitional housing, which is then they'll give you an apartment, but then it's managed by that group home or that company, and they come and make sure they pay your rent. They go to people, and you know how you see these homes coming up, whether they're like whatchamacallit, halfway houses. It's sort of along those same things, and you find communities saying we don't want those kids in our neighborhood because they don't have parents or they have challenges.
So to that point, though, when you think about how Black government money works, right? How we get social service money, that's pretty much all we get is social service money. Is it profitable for us to keep our children in these traumatic positions?
It's profitable for the companies to keep our children in these positions, not us.
Well, in this, at least, and again, from the film perspective, I don't know how it works in Chicago, but in the film perspective, it seemed like Black people were running and operating these group homes.
Yeah, and there's a mixture between who's actually owning the group homes, but I think for those like the one that we did film with instinctively, like you did see in that group home that they were actually instilling like life skills, and they had groups and they introduced them to different community services. But actually, you're actually mandated from the state to actually have some type of curriculum that you're using for the youth that's in your group home. But I felt like they did give a good job to say that I care about you, that you're not just a number that I'm getting from the state of Wisconsin for you to live here. So I think when they can have that approach and actually have that hands-on approach, and then also be able to instill wisdom in the youth, then it is to a certain extent beneficial. But then again, like Brandon, who was in the group home, that's where we met him. Unfortunately, he got kicked out of that group home before we even stopped filming. And I'm not for sure if you paid attention to that, but
I did.
Yeah, he got kicked out and he had to go to a whole nother group home because it's also your behavior. And so they don't tolerate like even, and I understand like even with, you know, her like, hey, let's give you a second chance. They were like, if you continue, and I think, and I don't want to say you get so many strikes against you because I don't know how the inner workings work, but they will request permission for you to be released.
In regards to like solutions, right? If we're thinking about solutions, there was another theme in the film where everybody who was an authority figure kept saying to the youth, "Hey, man, you got to get your education. You got to get your education. You got to get your education." And I'm starting to look at that, and this is just Toussaint's personal opinion. This isn't a reflection of the film, but I'm starting to look at that as kind of like hypocritical. And I say that because, you know, if I juxtapose your film, there's another film that was just released on Netflix about the white families that were buying degrees and buying placements at high-end colleges, right? And I watched that all the way through. And one of the underlying themes that you realize from watching that movie all the way through is that they only caught one guy doing it, and they couldn't possibly account for the amount of children who paid their way into admissions into college. They would have no idea. And this guy was charging upwardsly of like $500,000 a child and $700,000 a child. And these are like high end, you know, USC, Georgetown, those kind of degrees. But imagine how that would happen on the lower level. It might cost you like $50,000 or something like that. And I thought about that, and I said, well, if these kids didn't academically get into these schools based on their own merit, and their parents are just buying these degrees, 9 times out of 10, they're going to come out of there and they're going to inherit wealth or inherit job opportunities or inherit positions, and it's going to sustain their lives. While those of us who are fighting from the bottom with real merit are still placed in kind of a sectional spot in America. It's still kind of like this, your space is here. You can't go past this border. You know what I mean? And the wealth is contained through just hierarchy, really, you know? And I ask myself, is there something different we can sell our children other than education? And I'm just asking out loud. I don't know the answer to that. I don't even have an idea what that answer could be. But I don't know if that's honest of us. How you feel about that?
I think, in my personal opinion, because I'm a lifelong learner, so I think sometimes, and we tried to address that a little bit in our film, that there has to be alternative ways of learning. Some people may not want to be able to learn, like, okay, you take this standardized test or you take this class and it's going to help you. But how can we give them hands-on life skills? And I think, unfortunately, some things that I've seen with the youth, both from my family from Milwaukee and Chicago, where it's like, okay, well, you know what? School ain't really my thing. I really don't need it. But yet and still, I feel like you still need some type of knowledge and lifelong skills, whether that's financing, how to be able to balance your checkbook, how to keep, how to build your credit. All of these things where maybe it's some of those life skills that we need to instill in class. And also in the curriculum, where we're changing it, where we're actually connecting with the youth, but yet we're still educating them in some type of way. We're teaching them how to network. We're teaching them the power of, connection and building and community. I think that's what needs to be instilled in the children, because unfortunately, that's what no one can take that away from you once you have that embedded in you. And I think that's what we're missing across major cities, is continuously educating people with life skills. Not just how to survive, but how to thrive.
That's true too. We've been having this conversation around identity in here just today a little bit earlier before you logged in. It's a constant conversation. It's a constant theme of the show about what it means to be Black and how do we identify as Black and where do we find value in Blackness. And in your film, in that circular conversation again, there was a young sister that opened up the conversation in her first statement. And she said that she broke out crying and she said, I feel like I'm a disappointment and I try not to be heard. I try not to be heard. And that struck me, man. And it just was such a strong statement, right? It's not that I want help. She said that. And there was another young sister who had a similar statement where she said, I don't even seek to find happiness. I don't even want to find happiness because I know it'll be snatched away from me. So I don't even seek it, right? And I thought about that too. And I think that there's this kind of overarching theme of depression that just kind of looms in our community. And I think the way that the film plays out, it exposes that idea in a way that we don't get to see often. Was that like a goal?
I just wanted to be able to share their truths. And however that turns out, I wanted to be able to explore it, because I didn't want to. And once again, I know sometimes people hear like, I'm sick of seeing Black pain. I want to see more Black joy. But within our joy, sometimes comes pain, unfortunately. But we need to let them know that even though you're going through X, Y, and Z, there's still joy at the end of it. So I wanted to be able to express what are the truths of these youth, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And in those moments, when they were in that class session, because it was a safe environment for them, they were willing to share their truth. So I was there, like, don't hold back. And I'm excited that they shared their truth, because someone else could be going through that, or someone else could probably even relate to say like, hey, I got through that, or I've never even went through that, So I just think that it was important for me to show their authentic truth and not try to sugarcoat it, not Hollywood it, but to actually show what the youth are facing.
You also got this film to HBO Max, right?
I did.
How did you pull that off?
Well, I think it was perfect timing and positioning. In 2020, right before we were actually stopped filming in the beginning of 2020. So I had a very strategic plan that I wanted to go to distribution, because when I made the film, once again, my goal was to counter the negative statistics that were being told about the city, about what's happening with the Blacks and be able to tell the stories behind it. So I started contacting networks like a little after the shutdown, because I knew that I didn't know exactly how the film festival circuit was going to continue to run out. Even though I actually had my premiere at the American Black Film Festival, which that was my second run with them, which I'm so excited for them, just kind of always starting off my career. So I was excited to be a part of their online component. However, even then, I was contacting networks. They were reaching out to me left and right, saying, hey, can I get a screener? Can I see what the film is about? And from there, I was able to get a few offers from different networks. And I decided that HBO Max would be the best platform for the film.
Do you think that was normal, or do you think that was like a response to the uproar, the racial uproars that's been happening over the last couple of years in America?
And I think it was a combination of both, because like I said, it was actually the best positioning that I probably could have gotten for that film, because even before everything erupted with George Floyd at the end of May, I was reaching out to them like the end of March, the beginning of April. So that had not even happened. But then when that happened, it was more like, wow, we need to show Black content. We want more Black content. We stand behind our people. But once again, I feel that, it was a need, because normally, and I'll be honest, it's not the normal case for the director and the producer to reach directly to the network. But because of the nature of the content, they wanted to see it. So I was extremely, positioned well with the film when I was able to release it.
Mm-hmm. You also mentioned something about Black girl and Black boy joy, right? And you said that there's a desire for our people to see those kind of images and those kind of messages. And as we're having this conversation, I'm looking at the comments right now, and there's a few comments saying, oh, I can't wait to watch this. I'm gonna watch this tonight. I'm gonna check this out tonight. And then there's other comments saying, man, I'm not sure if I can handle this, right? And I think there's some value, for me personally, I think there's value in recognizing, and I want to say our truth in totality, because those experiences that those youth are having, they're true. And I think sometimes we kind of set up an illusionary kind of idea of what it is to be Black, right? Like I said, I brought my kids into the table to watch the film, at least that section of the film, because in their life and in their mind, their reality is the standard. Their reality is the norm. And when you start looking at the data, like you said, you want to create this film to counter some of the negative statistics. I think that we can all operate as a community and we can all operate in love, but the statistics are the statistics for a reason. So to assume that world doesn't exist is also creating a false ideology or a false understanding of our real experience. So I think there's value in showing it as is, right? Just lifting the veil. And that's kind of what you did. You just lifted the veil. Here's a camera, and I'm just you tell your story. It wasn't acted out or pretended. And I think there's value, and I think that there's a large swath of our community that is so encapsulated in the aspiration of, or the want or the desire to be happy, that we start to create a false narrative of what our existence really is. So I appreciate you telling the story in the way that you did. Honestly.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, I definitely do. Have there been any follow-ups to what's going on with to the three kids that you followed? Outside, I know they did this brief one at the end of the film, but anything since then?
Yeah, so I actually stay in contact with them quite frequently. So I am on their line, making sure that they're continuing to move forward. And they're young adults now, so I mean, they're going to have some hurdles. They fall every day. Marquel, he's getting back in school, and also the mentors that you see that he was introduced to in the film. Well, actually, he already knew them. They stay on him. Like, okay, Marquel, you took a break because his brother got killed, one of his older brothers, right after we were actually done filming. So he took it hard. He said, I couldn't concentrate, but now he's working. He's preparing to go back, I believe in this fall, so that he don't miss the full semester of school again. So he's on his way. Tiana, she's actually, which I hate that we didn't get a chance to really explore the relationship with her son. But in the middle of us filming, he was still kind of in the transition of being fully adopted by two women. But they actually still have Tiana present in his life. So I'm excited about that. He actually watched his mom on the documentary. He was like, that's my mom. Like, he saw her, and, he knows that she's trying to, forge ahead and do well in her life, and actually just find out who she is as a woman. Because when we started filming, she was 18. She's actually 21 now. So just trying to navigate her way through life. And then Brandon still has some hurdles.
Real quick, before you get into Brandon, we got to take a quick break. We can get into Brandon right when we come back.
WIIFTVPM.
Come on the way with me.
Church Chicago's Power Hour. I'm your host, Angie Mims, and
Terrence Keys, TD, a.k.a. Terrence Daniels.
You got an inspirational word for today?
Oh, man, I'll be honored. Giving honor to God. Amen. On Sunday morning, it's early, so we got to give honor to God.
Yes, sir.
The word for today is don't worry. Mm-hmm. Oftentimes in our life, in our walk, in our days, in our journeys, we find a way to just worry about so many things. Yeah. And we just want to encourage you today that those worries is God's responsibility. It's God's responsibility, because at the end of the day, what we worry about, most times we can't handle.
Yes.
If we would agree together, we can't handle it. So we have to give it to God. That's his responsibility. Mm-hmm. And our job is to simply believe.
Yes.
I agree. Simply believe. When we believe, the Bible says all things are possible.
Come on through here.
I better leave that alone.
Preach it already.
So be anxious for nothing. Even the Bible says don't worry about anything. In Matthew 6:33 says don't worry about anything, but seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these other things be added unto you. So we're here to encourage you. And I think that when we came on with the show, God's going to turn it around. A lot of people are kind of depressed and they feel like they've lost a lot of loved ones. We're into the thousands with deaths and COVID. But do you believe that God's going to turn it around?
I got to.
I mean, seriously. Why?
Because he's did it before.
Come on.
And he'll do it again.
I believe.
Yes.
And you can do it again.
Yes. Yeah. Come on here.
Come on, I better leave that alone.
Somebody calling you right now.
Somebody calling you right now. If it ain't, I better go. God's going to turn it around.
And I feel like we have to encourage the people, because so many people are just truly depressed. They're going through the holiday blues, and we want you to know that you don't have to be discouraged. But you can, in fact, be encouraged, because God's going to turn it around. I wish I had one witness in that.
You got one.
You got a couple of them.
I got
two T's.
Give me a testimony.
Oh, Lord. He's did it before. Oh, Lord.
I got one. I got 5 reasons.
5 reasons. Oh, Lord. He turned it around.
Turn it around. He woke me up this morning.
Oh, don't do this. Don't do this.
Go ahead.
Number 4.
He woke me up this morning.
Come on, number 3.
He woke me up.
Oh,
He woke you up.
that thing can touch you. One of them 5s will get you. What's the second one?
He woke me up.
Yes, sir.
Oh my God.
And the number 1 reason.
Number 1. Final answer.
He woke me up.
He woke me up this morning.
That's a testimony.
That's a testimony.
It's me again. God's gonna turn it around. I'm calling on you. You did it before.
Oh, hey, fellas, question.
Well, sometimes I go out by myself and I look across the water, and I think of all the things what you're doing, and in my head I paint a picture. Well, since I've come home, well, my And I miss your ginger hair and the way you like to dress. Won't you come on over? Stop making a fool out of me. Why don't you come on over, Valerie? Valerie. Did you have to go to jail? Put your house on up for sale. Did you get a good lawyer?
She
I
trying to
hope
get you
you
on
didn't catch a tan. I hope you find the right man who fix it for you.
You back.
We are back. You are tuned into I Said What I Said on the What's In It for the Black People Media Studio at the What's In It for the Black People Media Studios. I am Toussaint Werner. Today I'm joined by Tyshawn Woodard, HBO documentarian of the new documentary called Growing Up Milwaukee. Before we left out, Tyshawn, you were saying something about one of the kids you were following. I think you was getting into Brandon's story, like where he's at today.
Yes, I was saying that Brandon is still a work in progress. Unfortunately, when he aged out of the group home system, we also realized that there was no resources because he was really almost even kicked out of the last group home that he was in. So there was no transitioning. There was not a plan for him to progress out into the world. So basically, he kind of hopped around between house to house, which is what we kind of put at the end. However, we're still in contact with him, making sure that he's working, trying to give him different resources and also encouraging him, because I think sometimes we all worry about Brandon the most out of all of the other youth, because he was just getting introduced to some of the mentors that we introduced to him in the film. Marquel had a little bit of more of a solid background because he was working with a few guys beforehand, but with Brandon, just the men that we introduced to him was the only men that were encouraging him at the moment and has been for the last few years. So we just continue to pour into him and love him and say, you know what, we're not letting you go. We know the cameras are not on you, but yet we still care about you. We see you and we want to make sure that you're doing well.
There was an interesting scene with Brandon, and it was kind of a nuanced scene, but it was very interesting to me. There was a moment when Brandon was driving one of the mentors' cars, and in driving his car, they had drove past his mom.
Yeah.
And he blew the horn, and the mentor was like, who is that? And he was like, oh, that's my mom. And he said it so, nonchalantly, like, yeah, whatever. You know what I mean? And they went on to their destination, and then the mentor specifically was like, hey, man, call your mama. See how she's doing. See what's going on with her. And it just brought up another thing to me. Like, what level of engagement did you all have with their parents, or did you all have any interaction with the youth's parents at all?
We actually didn't. Well, Tiana, of course, she aged out, and we actually met her father. We did meet
There
her
was a
father
scene with her dad. You're right.
concert. But her relationship with her parents, as you can kind of see even in the film, was rocky because they were upset with her about exposing their life and her music. But I would say with Marquel's mother, even though she gave permission to be on camera, she didn't want to be on camera herself. So we did respect that. So you didn't get a chance to see that interaction, but she would actually call and tell me, prime example, when Marquel sat down in the park with his friend and he was saying like, dude, why did you leave for a whole weekend and didn't tell your mom where you were going? And when they had that dialogue, like the mom called me and said, I don't know what y'all need to do, but you need to come get Marquel because he's going to get kicked out of my house because he's been gone. I don't know where he is. So I was engaging kind of on the producer end with the mom and trying to also help navigate some stuff that was happening in the house because she was ready to kick him out, but she didn't kick him out after that situation. But we did interact, and I talked to Marquel about it, and we also filmed a portion of explaining what was actually going on in that moment. With Brandon, interestingly, I don't think you could have wrote that in the script. Like his mom had not seen Brandon in months. and months, because before he got into the group home, he actually, so that was the first time him seeing his mom on the bus stop. He had actually just got out of DT and he got placed in the group home. So that was the first interaction. Well, I mean, sighting, I guess you can say, because they didn't really interact until he called her, that he had since he was in the group home for a few months.
I know this wasn't really necessarily explored in the film, but was it maybe explored in the back end, like some of the relationships with the youth's parents? Like even Marquel per se, like his whole theme was, the back and forth between his mom. Is there any idea of where that stemmed from, or what was the point of contingency?
I think it was just pain from not actually having a stable situation yourself as a parent, and it just kind of trickled into their relationship. Once again, we did see them engage a little bit, but it was literally like how we were filming it, and he was like, "I don't mess with my mom." Like that's what we were actually dealing with on the back end, where they just could not see eye to eye, unfortunately.
Similar thing with Tiana. She spoke about early in the film. She spoke about problems with both of her parents, and then there was a little point in the film where she had mended the relationship with her dad, and then it went back to her last record was like they both getting on my nerves.
And Tyshawn, before y'all continue, and Tyshawn, thank you very much. I just want to make sure that we remind people the name of the movie, the documentary, where they can find it, because people are jumping in asking. One more time, what's the name of the documentary?
It is called Grown Up. Oh, okay, I got. It's called Grown Up Milwaukee, and it is exclusively on HBO Max, so you can find it in their documentary section.
Awesome. We'll be checking that out.
Thanks, Mace.
I just want to make sure you remind. I wanted to promote her. I want some value.
I'm with it. Absolutely, I'm with it. So the comments are going crazy. They're all trying to find it. They're going to definitely go and watch it tonight. But yeah, to Tiana though, you had said something about, was it Marquel that you said his brother had died?
Yeah, and interestingly, we were supposed to film with his brother.
Okay, and in the story of Tiana too, at the end of the film, they said Tiana had moved to Arizona for a while, and then she had been pushed back or pulled back to Milwaukee because she had suffered the death of one of her younger brothers.
Yes.
Very.
So her brother died in an accident, a car accident, and then Marquel's brother was murdered.
Oh, that's tragic, man. The overarching theme, though, in my mind, of the entirety of the film is just how vulnerable Black life really is. And I think the way that you explored that story was revealing. And I think people who don't engage with youth or who don't engage with that segment of our society in the ways that the film opens up, I think will be it would be life altering if they sat down and watched the film. So I really implore everybody, to go grab HBO Max and go watch the film as soon as possible. Tyshawn, we appreciate you joining us today. If you got anything else you'd like to say about the film, the floor is yours.
No, well, thank you once again for having me. I appreciate. I don't take it lightly every time that I get a chance to talk about the film and its capacity. And you definitely had some awesome questions today, so I thank you for that. And everyone, just thank you for tuning in and also being able to go check out the film. Once again, it is exclusively on HBO Max. You can find it in its documentary section. I appreciate the love and the support, and I'm just excited for all of the people who are watching the film.
Absolutely. We definitely appreciate you tuning in and rocking with What's in It for the Black People Media. Also, man, if you got social media handles the way anybody can follow you at, or anything you want to push that, or any projects you got coming up in the near future.
Yeah, so actually I forgot to mention as well that I'm establishing myself as a Midwest-based company. So I do have an office now located in Wicker Park. So I am in the Chicago area now, being able to start my footprint even in Chicago with being able to tell the stories of what's going on in the city as well as branded content. So I am in the city as a woman minority-owned production company, as well as you can find me on all social media platforms as Ward Law Productions, which that's WARDLAW, and then that's Productions, as well as on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, and then on my personal handles, you can follow me on Tyshawn, TYSHUN, Wardlaw, on social media platforms.
Tyshawn, I'm gonna reach out to Christy, man, and I'm gonna get your direct info, man. We're gonna make some money with Wardlaw. I got some ideas for you.
All right, I'm in the city. Let's do it.
All right, nice to meet you. Thanks for joining us.
Bye.
Appreciate you. Now, Maze, I don't know what to do now. I got to do anything or no?
Let's see. If she taps out, then you won't have to do anything. Did her screen go black? Did she go away?
No, I didn't. So should I pause out? We're not
Just
live,
hang
right?
up.
Just hang up.
Just pause
Just
out.
hang up. Thank you, sis. We
Okay,
appreciate
bye.
you.
Appreciate you.
Bye.
Thank you. Hey, man, it's live, man.
Hey,
it's live.
This live TV,
It's live,
man.
man.
It's live radio.
It's live.
We doing it all. Man, too. First of all, let me say, great get. Like, great get. When you said Milwaukee, all I could think of was Jerry Curls, right? And folks. I'm not gonna lie. But I am intrigued by this documentary, and I look forward to checking it out. Man, let me just say this. Anything that made you publicly say that it almost made you drop a tear, I got to go.
Almost. I teared up, G. It's tough, G. It's tough to hear. Man, it was
that.
It's tough, G. The sister said, "Yeah, I got raped or whatever." Like that was a quote. You understand what I'm saying? Another little sister said, "Man, like I said, she said, I don't want to be hurt. I'm a disappointment." It sound like the Goody Mob line. Every day I wake up, I feel like I'm a disappointment to y'all. That was her truth, and she ain't never heard the Goody Mob line.
Wow, too. It's funny that you talk about this, and I was thinking about this. You refer to O Block a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And
that's just because everybody else can recognize what it is.
No, but you refer to it, and I remember during the Ken Duncan campaign, which is we worked a lot with like Dirk and a bunch of those guys that were over there in the area, and I remember the brothers talking about like leaving the thing that we were at and going to find Xanax, right? And then they was gonna find a girl, and they was gonna give her half a pill, and then they was all gonna go to town. And I just was sitting there like, and I think I saw the girl. And I think I was just devastated at the concept. And she was kind of with it as long as they had and I'm saying, how old are you? Right? Like, and so I can't even imagine watching this documentary and like I got raped or whatever this summer. I got raped or whatever.
Yeah, we've normalized trauma, man. We've normalized it. But see, I want us to I use O Block because it's easily identifiable locally and nationally. But I really want us to get away from sectioning off segments of our community. I think the behaviors that happen in O Block are the same behaviors that happen in Matson, the same behaviors that happen in Bolingbrook. Like we laugh at it and joke about it, but the shorty that Maze plays the video, the streets of Bolingbrook, he's mimicking that behavior for a reason. It's become normalized and celebrated. So his value set is no different than the shorty on O Block, even though he's not living the O Block experience. There's nowhere in the world that boy from Bolingbrook is having the O Block experience. But his value set is set in the same thing. He wants to be the same guy, not realizing that the O Block behavior is born out of necessity, right? And let me not even say that, because the O Block behavior isn't even born out of necessity. The O Block the behavior is born out of the desire to have materialism. It's not born out of necessity, because materialism is not a necessity, and that materialism is a trope of what the value of capitalism is, right? And we got to let go. So the same behaviors that we see in O Block, we see in Matson too. It's just exhibited in different ways, right? Is the teacher that passes kids through school that has that house in Matson, who she knows can't read, is she as guilty as the guy on O Block? Is she destroying lives too? I think we got to add some. It's a question at least.
I'm with you.
You know what I mean? It's a question at least. So the retail, the real estate investor who sells you balloon loans, are they the same people? You got to ask the question. What is the value and what it means to be black? And I think that's an intricate question, because if you dig deep enough into other communities, the way they respond to each other is very different than how they respond to people outside of the realms of their community. That I'm hard pressed to believe that the Asians are using predatory behaviors against the Asians.
They aren't.
You know what I'm saying? And they might be using predatory behaviors against everybody else.
And they might use them against the new guys.
And
like
maybe
the first ones, you got to pay your dues.
You got to pay your dues, right?
Yeah.
But same thing with the
right.
Jewish community, right?
Right.
I've been in certain rooms. I've been blessed to have the pleasure to be. I don't know if it's a blessing or not.
It's a blessing and a curse, bro.
It might be a blessing.
It's a blessing and a curse, because you get to see it.
I get to see it up front.
Be like, damn,
this is unbelievable.
And what you have a comparison.
You have a comparison.
You have a blessing and a curse.
Right.
And you know what
I was in a room with some Jewish people, some high-powered, recognizable name Jewish people. I was in a bull suite with these Jewish people.
Out, dog.
Right. And
How much
someone,
ticket?
I don't know who this person was. I have no idea. But a random person called one of the Jewish guys in the room. And it must have been a business offer. Like, hey, man, I got this new business idea I want to create. I need XYZ amount of money. Now, XYZ, I don't remember the exact amount, but it was more money than we fathom.
I got you.
You understand what I'm saying? And he raised that money within passing that phone around the 5 million that was located in that one room. There was no business plan attached to this. There was no proof of where the money was going. There was none of that attached to this. It's just, he's one of ours. Mafioso, La Costa Nostra. You understand what I'm saying? Now, had that been our conversation, you couldn't walk and knock on somebody's door and tell them that you had Bitcoin before Bitcoin was popular and ask somebody for $1. They'd look at you like you was insane. But that's also part of the conditioning. We've been conditioned. You said this morning when you was having the Flager conversation, right? We expect the worst of each other. But we expect the worst of each other because we operating on a paradigm of blackness that was defined by somebody outside of us.
I think I might have finally got that. I ain't gonna tell nobody. Don't tell nobody, but I think I finally may have gotten what you're saying in that space. I think it just clicked. I don't know how you adjust it. I don't know how you deal with it, but I do think I finally got where you've been going.
But that's what it is. You know what I mean? Like, again, you've been in the rooms. I know you have. You know what I mean? So for me to sit there and to see that, I'm gonna do you one better. I was in a room, a white room, and I was the only brother in the room. And this white room told me that they've been investing $60 million in the black community for X amount of years. Right? I was like, $60 million. So this white room broke out a ledger. And it had name with dollar amounts attached to all of the money that they've been giving to our community. Names attached to this. Names I know, names you know. Right? There was one name in there that they had given that guy $2 million. That same guy been running for me for 2 years for $200 that he owed me. I was so offended. I was offended by the fact that you've been running for me from 2 years for $200 in the first place. Right? But I took it as a loss. We just can't do nothing together ever again for no $200. It's not that serious for me. Right? But to see that this guy got a $2 million investment from this people and you can't pay me my $200, but you riding around the city in the slingshot. You know what I mean? You studying on the land. You know it is. It just me said the slingshot. You can put that together. So it ain't no dope boy. You understand? These are political figures, church figures. These are those kind of people that they were putting this bread into, right? But again, our ideas and our conditioning isn't about reinvesting that bread and building up in reality. It's about material so I can look like I'm the big fish in this little pond. You know what I mean? I'm not telling you who it is, babe.
Yeah, look, I'm over here like, hold on, slingshot? Let me stop. Yeah. Man, too, can I say this? Because I know we about to wrap up. But I'm going to tell you this, brother. That was a powerful segment. Got me wanting to go check out the video. I don't appreciate you coming in here trying to check me and Lil Ron. But I'm gonna say that you.
I wasn't finna be flying solo.
Look, like everybody want to be on the soul plane. So let me just say, too, you like, man, you know, you always talk a lot of smack, and I think you do it on purpose, and you downplay yourself as the shooting guard. But I will tell you that today, as the point, you played a very good position, and you pushed the button a little bit. You had the buttons together.
I had to push the button, man. I appreciate that, man. But I don't like pushing the button. I like slaying it too. I like shooting the ball, not dribbling it. You understand me? So Herb, hurry up, G. Come back.
Look, and Herb ass, look, Herb, you know, Herb watching. It's like, dog, just enjoy the beach, dog. He ain't gonna take your job. He ain't quitting you. It ain't gonna be nobody that can take your place.
Herb studying, man, making sure I'm fucking up.
Well, I'm gonna tell you what, he was very proud of you. He has been very encouraging. But too, I'm gonna tell you, bro, that was a powerful interview. That was a great get. We don't talk to Christy Harbor.
Look at the hater. How you know my sources?
Because you revealed.
I did? Oh, shout out to Christy. Christy ain't gonna talk to you though. That's my sister.
I know. Christy owed me a couple.
Okay.
She faked me out on a couple, but it's all good. You know, I got much love for everybody in Chicago. So A2, what can we expect tomorrow? I know I talked to Miko, so I know she's planning on coming.
She's with it?
Yeah, I think you got Mary too. Let's do the 2-hour thing.
So I got a question though. I want to bring a brother too, the one that's supposed to come here today. How you feel about that? So I'm thinking of more of it, me maybe being back there with you and had him in here and we just kind of play the point and pass the ball and let them deal with it. How you feel about that? Oh no,
hey,
that's too much.
It's y'all show. It's like now we might have to bring him in, and he only have to bring me a COVID test, or we might have to bring him through video chat. But I'm down with whatever. Let's make it happen. Let's just have a good show.
Okay, we'll figure it out.
All right.
So again, man, we appreciate you all rocking with us. This has been Toussaint's version of I Said What I Said. Now, shout out to my brother Herb again, man. I told you he's out gallivanting the world, enjoying his birthday, man. Have a wonderful time wherever you are in the world. Although I know I'm not going to tell all these, I'll leave that up to you. Man, appreciate Maze working the boards today. Appreciate Lil Ron helping me work the switcher before we all got started. Because what you all didn't see is that Ron pushed every button before this show started. Because I didn't know what to do. And again, man, tune in tomorrow where we have our regular Relationship Friday, and we're gonna have a different dynamic or a different play on Relationship Friday because we're gonna have more women in the room than we have men. So that should always, you know how women do. They're a gang anyway. So when they're together, it's just, you know, it gets bad for the brother. But we definitely gonna try to make that work tomorrow. And tune in to all the other shows, man. Tune in early in the morning. What time does the Roof Boy Store start? 6?
6 to 9.
6 to 9.
Book of Dawn.
Book of Dawn after that. Then we got Torre.
Then we got Torre. Then we got the Bigs.
We got the Bigs, and then we back here with us. So, man, peace out, man. We appreciate y'all rocking with us. We'll see y'all here tomorrow, same place, same time.
WIIFTVPM.
For Ruthie Moore, for Ty Stroger, I am the host of the Maze Jackson Show, asking every single day, what's in it for the black people? And if you don't like it, you can still tell them Maze said, Mayor Lightfoot, man, we ain't accepting that. We ain't accepting that. Let's go.